Welcome to the Purity for Life podcast, episode 126, recorded on Sunday, April 26, 2015. This week, developing a marathon mentality in a sprint society. For more information about this podcast and other great content, visit purityforlife.me. This week we're talking about an incredibly important aspect of recovery, and that is vigilance. Being watchful, being observant, being attentive, being alert in your recovery journey, which is something that I think is developed over time. I think it takes time to become vigilant. I don't think we start off being vigilant in recovery. I think we start off being very weak, and where there's a lot of old behaviors that are still occurring, and we're kind of trying to break free from. I think vigilance takes a lot of work, but I think it's something that we have to do, and we have to cultivate in our lives if we want to live with sexual integrity, if we want to become the men and women that God has called us to be. And so I want to talk a little bit this week about vigilance, developing a marathon mentality in a sprint society, which is actually the title of the podcast this week. So as I was thinking of this subject for this week's podcast, I was kind of thinking as it pertains to my group that I lead on Thursday nights. I lead an online support group for men dealing with sexual addictions. It's actually through Triple X Church, and it was a great meeting this past week. We had a great meeting. We always say every week is a great meeting with my guys, but I felt like this word kind of was coming to mind, being vigilant, and not that I feel like my guys are doing a bad job. I think every single one of them are they're just knocking it out of the park with their recovery, and they're doing so great. But the reality is that we hit walls sometimes, and we hit, pockets and potholes of discouragement, and we get tired, and there's things that happen, circumstances in life happen, and it can oftentimes kind of put a stop on our recovery, or it can really challenge our recovery. It can keep us from really doing the very best that we can do. And so I was thinking about this word. Now I want to talk about this word a little bit and what it means to be vigilant in your recovery. And so the word vigilant actually means, it's an adjective, it actually means keeping careful watch for possible danger or difficulties. Keeping careful watch for possible danger or difficulties. That's a hard thing to do sometimes in recovery. We're not always at our best, and we're not always on our toes. But interesting to me that Proverbs 4:23 in one version says, "Guard your heart with all vigilance." There's the word, for from it are the sources of life. And so, knowing that definition, that vigilance means keeping careful watch for possible danger or difficulties, that when we guard our hearts, we're to guard our hearts. The Bible says that we're guard our hearts above all else, above all things, and we guard it with vigilance by keeping a careful look and a careful watch out for possible danger or difficulties. This doesn't mean that we're paranoid, that we are obsessed with the negative or the things that could happen that could go wrong, but we're wise. We're careful, and we're observant. Couple, maybe you've heard the term eagle-eyed or hawk-eyed. Somebody who's on the lookout, who's on one's toes. We're always on guard. And I think about just thinking about the tomb of the unknown soldier, and the changing of the guards. And if you've ever seen that site, that's a spectacular site to go see. And in Arlington, in Alexandria, Virginia, and Arlington National Cemetery. to go see that is just so cool, and to see the steadfast vigilance of this guard who walks from just 24/7. That there's someone on guard to guard this tomb, and that he is just focused, and there's not, I mean, through all the elements of weather, rain and sleet and snow and heat, and that it's just nonstop focus, step after step after step, discipline and vigilance, to because it is such a sacred place. And how much more in our own lives should we be that vigilant? So staying vigilant, like I said, it can be hard to do in recovery. It takes a few things. I think it requires practice, patience, and positioning. And I want to talk a little bit about those three kind of P's in our recovery: practice, patience, and positioning. Number one, it takes practice. I often find myself kind of bringing this analogy up to my guys that recovery takes practice. Most guys who walk in recovery for any length of time are going to have slips. They're going to have relapses. And you need to understand that this is a normal part of recovery, that no one is born an expert at playing a sport, right? Let's just think about sports, and let's think about music and art and everything in life. No one is born being a Picasso. No one is born being Bon Jovi, or no one is born being, an incredible, an expert at a trade, or an expert at some kind of hobby or talent. Those kinds of things take practice. When I was learning to play the guitar, I was 16 years old, and it really took me some time to learn how to, the fingering to make chords. I mean, that was really hard to learn at first, to get your fingers hardened, right? And to realize that there's these calluses that have to build up on your fingers that, and once that happens, you're really in a great place to be able to form chords, and you can hold your fingers down without them hurting really bad. And, but learning how to make chords, learning how to strum, finding and understanding what rhythm is, okay? And all that takes time. It takes a little bit more time for each skill. It would take me even more time to learn how to pick and to do different kinds of things on the guitar like that. Learning how to read music, so learning new skills naturally take us more time, don't they? So why is it any different in recovery? It's no different for us in recovery as we walk out of a sexual addiction, as we walk out of behavior that was, sexually impure and harmful to us. It's going to take us time. And so it really comes down to our daily decisions and choices that determine how well we practice and how much better we get. It comes down to your daily decisions, your daily choices. What are you choosing? What are you deciding on? What are you making decisions on? What are you allowing into your life? And that's really a lot of what how the practice determines, if you will, how the practice will go, are your daily choices and decisions. Again, where are you taking yourself? What are you intaking into your life? And within those things, we'll let you we'll give you an indicator as to how well you're probably practicing in life. And even with loads and loads of practice, there will still be mistakes. There will still be mess ups, times that you fall and you slip up. But it's within those failures, it's within those mistakes that we learn and grow. All right, number two, it takes patience. Okay, and in many ways, this goes along with number one, like practice, where practice, we're putting in the work each and every day, we're putting in time, and we are doing our best, and we're finding support, we're finding accountability, we are putting filtering and software on our computers to be safe and be wise. We're communicating with people our condition and how we're doing. We're spending time with the Lord, and so that practice. But there also needs to be patience that comes along in recovery. Learning, and I find that I find myself in this place at my place where I'm at in recovery now. But learning not to be so hard on yourself and giving yourself some breathing room really goes a long way. And this doesn't mean that you compromise. I'm not saying loosen your standards or compromise or go to places that you shouldn't. Just flirt around with things that are dangerous. But just not being so incredibly down on yourself when you make a mistake and when you take a step back, even maybe, or if you're not as intentional as you should be. Again, we're learning and growing, and with practice comes, you also have to have patience, right? And so again, not beating yourself up, but giving yourself breathing room, and I like to kind of call it some wiggle room in your growing. But also being intentional what you're doing. I've told the guys a lot, my guys a lot in the past, guys that I meet with, that recovery isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. And that just it is what it is. A lot of guys come out the gate running really hard, and that's great and that's awesome. But everybody knows that when you come out running really really hard, you lose steam pretty quickly, and you find yourself at the back of the pack, and the group trying to catch up. And but really setting a steady pace in your recovery, and realizing that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And for me, learning to have patience with myself has been one of the hardest things to do. Even today in my walk, in my recovery, it's difficult at times to do, whether it's a thought here or there, or maybe it's just continually training myself to to look and to keep the right focus with my eyes. Again, it's learning to have patience with yourself and learning to know that recovery takes time, and there's no experts born overnight, and it's impossible to do. Behaviors and habits are not easily undone and broken, and things take time to change. Your brain takes time to change from the patterns that you've set, from the things that you've looked at and you've allowed to impact your brain activity, your brain health. Pornography just distorts and perverts it, and creates so much junk within our minds. And so it takes patience, it takes practice, and number three, it takes positioning. I find this one to be the most important, I think, of all these three, as we stay vigilant in our recovery journeys. But positioning. And the basic question here is, are you setting yourself up for success each and every day? Are you, laying the foundation for a day to win, and and that doesn't mean that you will win. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have difficulties or struggles. It doesn't mean, it's going to be a problem-free day. But are you setting yourself up for success and for victory? My friend Jeff Fisher, who we're going to be actually recording a podcast here soon on the summer, on experiencing a summer, this coming summer, of sexual purity and sexual integrity. I can't wait to be able to do that with him. But my friend Jeff talks about these five, he calls them the five dailies. And I really like them a lot, and I kind of took them from him a little bit, and just I use them, and to reference, but to also kind of think about, is there's kind of five daily things that he does and tries to do in his recovery journey. And the first one is to pray. You know what I mean? Just to ask God for help and for strength that day, to read God's word, right? And to allow God's word to change you, to impact you, to help you in your walk. To read recovery material, because we need to be engaged in this battle. We need to understand your skills and tools and things to do to help us to grow. If you need to make a phone call, right? Make a phone call to someone, whether that's to find encouragement when you need, but also to give encouragement Maybe you're giving encouragement to someone who is struggling, but also you may be the one that needs that kind of encouragement in your walk. And then the last, number 5, is to pray again. It's to, so starting your day with prayer, ending your day with prayer, or somewhere throughout the day. Prayer is so, so important. Calling out to God and asking God for His help and for His strength. These are the things that are essential to winning every day. We have to be doing these things in order to walk in healing, to find healing from our addictions. So, are there aspects of your environment that's harmful? I wonder if you would think about that question. Are there aspects of your environment that you need to change in order to be successful, to really set yourself up for healthy positioning in your life? So, staying vigilant in your recovery, it requires that you open up your life and that you ask for help from other people. We've talked a lot on this podcast about, opening your life, reaching out to people, prayer, accountability, support through, groups, through, accountability partners, through, community. Not just walking out this thing. You cannot walk out this recovery journey on your own, by yourself. You need people to walk with you and to help you along in your recovery. Isolation is the number one killer among men trying to find help for their porn addiction. It's just the truth, because darkness and secrecy consume you, and that is a place that so many men, myself for 13 years, were trapped, was in that place of isolation. And the addiction grew and it grew and it grew. And, I didn't reach out to people, and I kept this a secret for so long in my life until, I reached a place of decision, and a place where I had to do something about my life and my behavior. And so I reached out to someone and I found freedom, and I continue to find that freedom each and every day. So, again, this is a marathon mentality that we have to develop. This is a marathon mentality in a sprint society, because we live in a society that says everything has to be quick and instantaneous and immediate and right now. But that's just not the way this works in recovery from a sexual addiction, from pornography, from anything like that. So, I just want to pray blessings over you this week. I pray that God will just help you to have that mentality of really, running hard and running strong, but also being vigilant in your recovery. Keeping your eyes out for the things that for possible dangers on the road, and planning for those things. Because they will come. They come with every single person. You're not immune, okay? No one is, all right? That's why we need Jesus, first and foremost. So just have an awesome week. I pray that you will experience freedom and healing, and I really look forward to seeing you again on the podcast next week. Going to be talking, like I said, with my friend Jeff Fisher. We're doing a special podcast this next coming up week on staying sexually pure in the summer, which is quickly approaching us here in the next month or two, a couple months. So I love you. Have a great week. Pursue purity with all your heart. And if you need any help, additional resources, or if you need to contact me, just head on over to purityforlife.me. That's purityforlife.me. I thank you so much for listening and watching the Purity for Life podcast. Have a great week. God bless.